All right, so narcissistic men, trying to go after women. What are they thinking? What are their strategies? And what can you look for if you think this guy, that's being nice to you and saddling up to you, um, you know, he might be a narcissist. So, how can you determine that? And I did a video recently about narcissistic women, and if you're a guy, on how to look for the warning signs with that. And I thought about it, and in that video I said, yeah, I didn't really want to talk about narcissistic men going after narcissistic men going after women, because I'm not a narcissist. Like, I don't know. I don't have experience in relating to narcissistic men in that way. But I thought about it, and I've known several narcissistic men, and I have watched exactly what they've done to go after women that I've been friends with, and I know the results and the outcomes. So I thought about it, and I was like, no, I know exactly what to do. I know exactly what the signs are, and ultimately what these narcissistic guys, what their goal is with these women. And to really understand it, of course you have to understand the behavior of narcissism in general. And narcissistic men are going to differ from narcissistic women in one key way. And this is something that society reinforces and society has forced upon women. And this is the idea and the concept of objectification. So society has objectified women in this kind of like, demonic lab culture that is forced upon us. Women are seen as objects now. And of course, that's terrible, and no one should be seen as an object. But that is the idea that's pushed throughout the culture and society. And so men, speaking from my own point of view, men in general, when they're approaching sexuality, they're viewing women as objects, because so much of that idea is forced upon us through the culture, through the movies, through the books, through the television, through entertainment. And so men are taught to view women as objects. And that's exactly what the narcissistic man is viewing the woman he's trying to get with. She is an object to him, and she is an object in his world. So where a narcissistic woman trying to get with a guy, you're not necessarily an object to her. You fill, a slightly different role in ultimately what she wants. But for a narcissistic man, the whole thing is they view women as objects, and you are a piece in their demonic world, a piece of their puzzle that they're looking to fill. So, unfortunately, because, women growing up in the Western society, in the Western world, they're subjected to this culture that portrays them as objects. And so then they're taught too to have men like you, and to be prominent in society, you have to then objectify yourself. And so it's this terrible cycle of people and humans just being looked at as objects. And so the narcissist they use this to their advantage. So if someone is thought of as an object, it's going to make them insecure about who they really are, and they're just going to be pursuing what they view as society is telling them what they should be. Society has projected the view and an image of what a woman should be, and they've forced that on everyone. So now women are trying to achieve that, and it's not who they are. I mean, maybe some women are kind of that way, but most women and people, I don't think, really are that way. So the narcissistic guy, he is playing into that. So there's already an inherent insecurity within the women. So it doesn't take much. It depends on the severity. Obviously, not all people and women are insecure, but some are more than others. And the narcissistic man can smell this. And that's another thing about understanding the behavior is these people are hunting. They're hunters, and they have a sense for weakness. And so initially, if the narcissistic guy is going to be attracted to you, whatever cue or a trigger that you set off in him, he will begin to pursue you, and then he will begin to probably just start with the initial love bombing and trying to really build you up and make you feel good about yourself and play into any kind of insecurities that he may pick up. And so I've seen this several times, and I watched one narcissist that I knew when I was younger. I was a teenager. I was still in high school, but I hung out with like him and his crew, and I've talked about him before on the channel. But I watched him go after this girl from the night we were all at a reggae show, and he approached her. He stepped to her. He's gonna step to her. I remember them saying that. I'm gonna step to her, bro. And I was like, okay, yeah, good luck. But anyway, he stepped to her, and and she took the bait. And so the narcissists, they're very clever and they're very charming. And what they're going to do is they're going to try to fill some kind of like baseline desires that women have, a sense of security, a sense of safety. They're going to easily provide those. And so that's what this guy did. First he came in hard with the love bombing. Then he came in next with, he was starting to pay her rent. So I remember she had this apartment and we used to go over there. But what he would do was he'd contribute to the bills. So he was beginning to kind of prey on those like baseline desires, of security, of safety, of a feeling of, that women have. It's like he used money to get his way in there, and then ultimately he slowly started to take control of her life. And in his mind, all she was just an object to him. So he is laying it on heavy with the love and the affection. He's slowly starting to get control of her situation and her scene because she was fully independent from him. But he is getting in there with all that, and then he is testing the waters to see if she is a narcissistic abuse victim. And that's where these guys are really going after. That's when they can really like set the trap, and that's when the trap is set and you're kind of screwed. Because the same as with a guy who's grown up in a normal household with normal emotions, when a narcissistic woman starts doing her weird super highs and super lows, it's going to seem odd and strange. And yeah, you might stick with it for a little while, but ultimately it will end because it is strange behavior. And it's the same if you are a woman and this narcissistic guy is doing the strange behavior to you. Like he's super nice and loving one day, and the next day he's super cold and mean. These highs and lows, that is strange. But it's not strange to someone who's been emotionally and narcissistically abused their whole life. So the narcissistic guys, they'll start pulling that move on the women. And this woman, come to find out, yeah, she has a narcissistic mother, and who has just raged on her whole life. So she fell right into it. And ultimately, let's fast forward 30 years later, and so this dude he got his hooks in her. He laid it on heavy. He started taking control of her scene. He went in with the narcissistic abuse where he's hot and cold, hot and cold, hot and cold. She trauma bonds to him. They're saddled up. She moves in. Boom, he knocks her up. She's pregnant with the first kid. And then she's in. That's 100%. And for these people, these narc dudes, she's just an object to him. So it was really strange when I'd be around them, because he would cut her down all the time. He would cut her down. Like, I remember it was a Halloween and we all went out in town and we were at a restaurant, and there's probably like 15 people at the table. It was a loud restaurant. There were a lot of people, and his wife was yelling across the table to somebody. And man, he lit into her in front of everyone and like, belittled her about how she's too loud. And you need to shut the fuck up. And you were all here, and you just need to hear yourself. And so, and of course she just took it. And like, how embarrassing is that? I was so embarrassed for her, man. I felt bad. But I just thought this guy's just a dick. But no, he's a demonic narcissist abuser. So anyway, fast forward 30 years, she's had 2 kids with this guy. He ultimately cheated on her because she started to get old, and he thinks he's 20. He thinks he's 25 or 30, so he wants a young thing, which he found. So she basically was imprisoned by this guy for 30 years, being completely hammered, and it destroyed her. When you see her now, she's just like old and sad, and he just fully ragged her out, and then had 2 kids with her. Kids are grown up now, and then just pieced out and kicked her to the curb, and now she's just alone. She brought another dude. This is that Faya guy, the dance hall legend Faya, who's terrible. She found him. He's a narc. He abused her for about a year. She finally got rid of him. But I see her, and we're not even friends anymore. But I see her because we live in the same town, and she's just sad. And that's the severity of what can happen to you if one of these guys gets their hooks in you. And it's of the utmost importance to be so cognizant and aware of the incrementalism that these guys use. Because I watched him where he met her, he loved bombed her. He was doing the heavy, emotional, like, you're so great, and he's like loving her so much. She let him in. He's paying the bills. He's like over at her place a lot. And then before you know it, she's moved in with him, and then it's like, and like, she wanted to have kids, but this wasn't the right guy to have kids with. And really, all he wanted from her was just probably to have kids, and then just to have someone to beat on, basically. To just put down and make him, he's just using her to build himself up. And so that's 30 years of this woman's life is gone, and I can tell she's still she's like a shell. She's super depressed, and I'm sure she has no idea what happened to her and what narcissistic abuse and spell that she was under. She probably doesn't even understand any of this, but it's I mean, you think about wasting 30 years of your life, like, that is insane. So then I have another friend that I knew and did a similar thing to another girl. And I knew this girl too. And come to find out, yeah, she has a narc mom that just hammered her whole life. This dude's a raging narc, like real similar. These guys, they're kind of real, they're real charming. That's one thing about the narc guys, is they really can lay it on. And I remember I met the guy, and yeah, he wanted to like get in on my music scene, because I had a good reggae band. We had like this like reggae hip hop band, and he's an MC, and he wanted to like get in the scene or whatever. And he's a good MC, but man, he's like a raging narc, and he can't get along with anyone, so he can't be in a band. So of course he tried to break the whole band up, but we booted him. But anyway, I watched him prey on this girl. And he kind of made his way through some women in town, and they all kind of just like, he'd sleep with them, and then they just bounce off of him. But he found this one, man, and she's been narcissistically abused her whole life, and so he got his hooks into her, and there was the whole thing of laying it on heavy, and then providing money and safety and security. And it's like, because that's the other thing with these women, is like, they didn't have to work. These are women that they were provided for. So that was a sense of security that a lot of women want. And so he did that for this girl, and man, he freaking like locked her away. I hadn't seen her it'd been 30 years. This has been like 20 or 30 years of me not seeing these people. And actually, it was like a month ago I saw this girl, and I saw this dude, and he was driving, and they had like 5 kids. And she gets out of the van, and she's physically like small and hunched over, and like the look on her face is like, oh, she's like that. You could tell, man, he has been hammering her, and he's kept her locked away. She's like his little object. And I saw her, and I was like, oh my God, because she was like a young, vibrant, beautiful woman. And I knew she was looking for a dude, and I was hoping that she could find someone cool. But man, this fucking dude got his grips on her. She had 5 of this dude's kids, and he looks like hell. He's just like fat and like, he's got this like these gnarly dreads that it's just like, yeah, man, he looked, and he's all gray and like didn't age well. And so anyway, he's been on her, and she did not look good. And they have like 5 kids, and I thought, like, God, that's like this lady's life. It's been 30 years of her life, and she's still in it, and who knows if she'll ever get out. And like, what kind of life is that? That's like a total prison. And so it's so important to just like understand and be able to see. But how do you, especially the saddest part is like these people don't know. These 2 women that I described is like they had no idea that, number one, they've been narcissistically abused their entire life, and then number 2, they're not aware that now they have these predatory narc dudes who want to just put them in this like prison. And so if you're watching this and you're a lady and you're like, and you are aware, thank God. And, those are some of the cues. It's the main thing is they just want you, they want to possess you. That's their whole thing, is they want to possess you and just control every aspect of your life. And so if you think, like you've met this guy and you're starting to get to know him, and he's kind of like slowly creeping in and like, oh, here's the money, let me pay that bill. Oh, you don't ever have to pay anything or pay for anything. Let me start paying your rent. If it's starting to kind of, if you're losing your sense of independence, and if you're losing your sense of ability to like get away from this person, that's probably a big warning sign. And then of course the behavior, if it's hot and cold, if like they're loving you one second and then the next they're cutting you down because of like some dress you're wearing or some bullshit, obviously that's a huge warning sign. But I know how it is when you're very lustful, you're like in love with someone, it's new, it's fresh, and it's really easy to use love as a means of clouding people's ability to see. But it's incredibly dire, and that could be it, like, because there's only a small window of when you can have children and when you can have a family, and if you do it with some narc and your life is over and you've missed this golden opportunity to actually have like a real family and meet a cool dude that you can share life with. And it's just so sad to think that those women that I've known, like, they're done, they lost that opportunity to have an actual good guy to spend their life with. And I don't know, I guess they'll just keep going and just be super depressed, and they'll just probably try to escape it as best they can. But it's no way to live. And so that's why I think it's really key, and women are just so, they're like so key to keeping society and humanity going. I mean, women have all the power, and you really can understand how society has objectified women, is to really like take away women's power. And so if you're a lady and you think the dude might be a narc, just cut him loose, man. Like, it's not worth it, because it could be a 30-year, 40, 50, 60-year prison sentence of your life being over. So there's a lot of the narc dudes out there, and just keep in mind, like, they'll be handsome, they'll be charming, they'll have money, they'll have the car, they'll have a fat pad, they'll have all the like drugs, they'll have all the stuff. But ultimately, they want to put you in the little box and shut the lid, and they open it up when they say it's time for you to dance. And that could be the next 30, 40, 50 years of your life. So just really, really keep it in mind, and just keep your wits about you, and just continue to study and learn, because the whole goal here is the truth and awareness, and that's the way we can really get to the bottom of it. Anyway, beautiful day on the river. And as always, thank you for your time and have a good day.